Good afternoon, everybody. If I could invite you to take a seat. Here we are at the closing session of the Cities Forum 2025. After 48 hours of really intense activities spread across 3 days, we've been exchanging ideas and good practices, networking between cities. We've been exchanging perspectives across different levels of government, from the European level, national, regional, city, also sectoral organizations. And we've been thinking about what our vision might be for the future EU agenda for cities and contributing into that discussion at this important moment. So I think it would be nice just now to take a moment to remind ourselves about some of the things that we've been doing by showing a short video recap that captures or tries to capture some of the energy and exchanges we've been experiencing these past 2 days. So if we could show the video, please. Thank you very much, and thank you to the team that put together that video so quickly so that we could take a moment to reflect and see a lot of the energy that we've been experiencing over these past few days, and hopefully some of you got to see yourselves in that video. What you saw there was, as I say, a lot of exchanges reflecting on what we can be proud of, what's working in terms of the support that we can offer to cities, supporting sustainable urban development across Europe, but also what is needed. And this closing session is an opportunity to look back on the journey and the discussions we've had. We can't capture all of the exchanges from all of the parallel sessions, but I'd like to take a moment because we've been asking you to input at different stages, particularly in the plenary sessions through Slido. And before I invite, we have a high-level panel who are going to share their reflections, but before I invite them onto stage, to share their perspectives from this year's Cities Forum, I'm going to attempt as best I can to remind ourselves of the contributions that you've made through this forum and reflect on your views as the participants at this year's Cities Forum. So in the opening ceremony, you might remember that we asked you what can make cities more livable, what could make your city more livable, and we saw some clearly emerging issues, which were, I think, and I hope you'll agree, reflected then in a lot of the discussions that we've been having at this year's Cities Forum, a lot around greenery, green spaces, and housing, sustainable mobility, inclusivity, topics like that. We then asked you in the stakeholders dialogue about how you see the alignment of policies and priorities on topics such as this between the European level and city level. And we saw that, generally speaking, there was some positivity, I think, about the alignment between policies. We continued to discuss this in the stakeholders dialogue, and I think it felt that the identification of the topics such as affordable housing, if we can move on to the next Slido response, there's a lot of agreement on what the priority issues are, like affordable housing and greening. We still need to do some more work, perhaps, to perfect the implementation mechanisms in engaging cities in the process of designing those policies from the beginning. We asked you about your experience of using EU programs, and there was a lot of positivity. A lot of responses were either positive or very positive in terms of, if we can now move on to the next slide, I've talked about that. There was a lot of positivity around the use of EU programs, and that's a really good basis on which to build on. There's a lot to be proud of. There is a lot that is working well. We heard in the mayor's debate earlier this morning some really good concrete examples about how cities are able to use EU funding to support real change on the ground. But not all of the experiences are positive, and there's some reflections about the need to open up more maybe to smaller and medium-sized cities with maybe less capacity. And one of the questions we asked was about the administrative efforts involved, and there was a feeling that it poses a significant challenge to participation for half of the respondents. And I think there's a lot of awareness about that. It's not a simple, there's no simple solution, but the issue of simplification and how we make some of the programs more accessible, particularly, as I say, to smaller municipalities, is a key one. After that, we asked you how well you think the voice of cities is heard in EU policy making. And here you can see there's quite a spread. It's kind of almost even between somewhat well and somewhat poorly. Perhaps reflects different perspectives. Maybe that's an issue of cities of different sizes or different capacities or different experiences of multi-level governance. But it shows that there are some concerns, and we heard that in the stakeholders dialogue discussions. Lots of calls for giving cities a genuine seat at the table, as it was expressed at times. After that, we asked about the challenges cities face in terms of securing funding. And again, we see linked to the earlier question, issues around administrative capacity, bureaucracy, lack of staff. These are the realities, these are the issues facing cities. It's challenging if you don't have a department that specializes on EU funding to be able to navigate all the opportunities and take advantage of them. And there's a lot of awareness, I think, of that. And solutions need to be pursued. After that, we asked some open questions around looking at the framework of support, what people want to see continued. Just some of the issues that I want to highlight there. The innovative actions was appreciated, and co-funded projects. Also the territorial tools, such as integrated territorial investments and CLLD, also got mentioned. People want to see those continued. In terms of what to change, something that linked with the discussion from yesterday by Karen was reconciling competitiveness goals with sustainable development. People wanted to see that a bit more clearly reflected. And opening up the project-based support to a wider range of cities, linking to all these issues that we've seen talked about in terms of administrative capacity and some of the difficulties of navigating all the opportunities. And there was a comment which I wanted to pick on around, someone said about stopping discussing the size of cities, but reflecting on the quality and the added value of what they can bring, and that size isn't everything when thinking about different cities and different types of cities across Europe and their potential to offer contribute to some of the objectives that we want to see achieved at European level in sustainable urban development. In terms of what to start, the real strong message in that room, I think, around giving a genuine seat at the table to local and regional authorities in the development of European level policies and programs. And there was also some energy around the idea of having more emphasis on food policies and greener cities still. We asked in a different session about what key change you would like to see to EU policies and priorities. And there, people talked about wanting to see increased flexibility to respond to different local realities and capacities. Not a one-size-fits-all approach, but really adapted to local realities. And again, it was an issue that came up in the mayor's debate when we heard from mayors representing municipalities of different sizes. And again, the issue of involvement of local and regional authorities in the decision-making from the beginning. And when we asked people what one recommendation they would make to improving future programs and support, a lot of energy for more direct funding, more accessible, open, simple, simpler to access. Again, I think for thinking about, in many cases, smaller and medium-sized cities. And having a more kind of systemic approach, a mission-driven approach, rather than fragmented approaches to support. And also focusing on scaling up, scaling out innovation, because there's lots of good practices that have been shown to work, and maybe some more focus. I know there's efforts going on already, and there are opportunities to do that, but the calls for even more to try and scale up, scale out, and scale deep innovations that we see across Europe. We asked, the question of multi-level dialogue and giving cities a seat at the table has come up a lot, and we asked specifically around what's the key to better multi-level governance. It was the final question from the stakeholders dialogue session. We provided a number of options, which I remember the answer was all of the above. And I can't now remember what the options were, but the answer was all of the above. So it shows that we need, here you go. So people said we need to have all of these. We need more systematic links between cities and managing authorities. We need to strengthen national networks for the implementation of EU priorities and address the challenges posed by EU regulations on local authorities. And that dialogue, systematic dialogue between cities, regions, member states and the EU. And people wanted to see all of those. And then finally, in the mayor's debate this morning, we asked again, what's the one thing the EU could do to improve support for cities? And there that generated a word cloud, which I will hopefully be able to talk about in a second. We're seeing a lot of the same messages coming through, which I think gives a really clear message from this year's Cities Forum. Direct funding came up, the issue around the dialogue, the topic of housing, tailor-made funding, reflecting local realities, not just designed as a kind of a one-size-fits-all approach to support and funding. So these are some of the issues that came up through Slido. We've also had an expression wall where lots of you have been contributing your ideas on different thematic areas throughout the city's dialogue. And there's a lot of ideas captured there. You can see here an image which shows a lot of the post-its that have been put up on there, just to highlight some of the ideas that emerged that we sort of noticed in the wall. In terms of smart cities, again, people talking about upscaling innovation and how we can support that, and data-driven approaches being at the heart of promoting sustainable urban development across Europe. In terms of inclusive approaches, accessibility for all, gender equal spaces, and also, again, the issue of administrative capacity of different municipalities came up in that context. And finally, greening, the more green funding, and the particular call to not just support the creation of green spaces or nature-based solution, but to support their maintenance. The idea that all too often new initiatives are set up, but then it's difficult to maintain if you don't have funding to ensure their continuity. And then overall, in terms of people's reflections about the future EU agenda for cities, the importance of place-based approaches, reflecting local realities. Again, this message coming through again and again, and the importance of networking, cooperation, exchange of good practices, city-to-city exchanges, the kind of activities that are supported by the EUI. So that's a good, strong message that we need that kind of capacity building exchange, and what you've been able to take part in during this year's Cities Forum. Finally, out in the foyer, you saw hopefully the mural that was co-designed brilliantly by our local artist, Marcin Chaya, together with your contributions. Thank you for your contributions to that. I'm not an art expert, and I wouldn't want to have to spend half an hour trying to interpret it, but what I take from that is there's a message there, I think, about green, inclusive cities, and also linked with the surrounding rural areas. Maybe we'll ask Marcin to write a paper on it. But if you have a moment, do go out into the foyer and check it out and see what you take from that. And thank you for your contributions. It looks fantastic, and we hope that it will be. I think some parts of it will be taken away and maybe displayed in different places, maybe in the offices of the UI or something. Hopefully, we'll get to see it again in the future. So thank you for all your contributions to that. I hope you found that quick resume captured your contributions and voices and what you've been sharing with us at this year's Cities Forum. But now, without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists, our high-level panelists, to join me on stage for a discussion of their reflections and what they take out, also looking forward into the future beyond the Cities Forum. So if I could please invite Kata Tuto, the President of the Committee of the Regions, Karin van Dantzig, the Dutch urban envoy from the Ministry of the Interior in the Netherlands, and Anne Wetzel, the Director of EU Affairs from the Région Hauts-de-France. Please join me on stage. A round of applause. Thank you very much for joining me here on stage, joining us this afternoon for the closing session of this year's Cities Forum. Kata Tuto, if I can start with you. You're President of the Committee of the Regions. The Committee of the Regions came up in the Mayor's debate this morning. I think it would be really nice if you could just remind people, maybe who aren't experts on this topic, of the role of the Committee of the Regions, and then maybe share some of your reflections from what you've seen and heard from the Cities Forum. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for coming. So yes, what is the Committee of the Regions? We are a European political body. We are the voice of cities and regions. We have more than 700 locally elected politicians from the smallest towns, from mountain areas, from the islands. We have mayors of capital cities like Barcelona, Roma, Bologna. We have the presidents of the regions. We cover many different dimensions and different realities and different sufferings. What do? We have a double role in stabilizing in Europe. One is that we are connecting European complex policies to local realities. We try to digest European legislation, and then we try to give a feedback about European legislation, which part of it is digestible, which is not, or how could we digest it better. So that is one part. The other part is, it's very important, we invest a lot in the horizontal connection of cities to cities, regions to regions, towns to regions, by connecting local leaders independently of their political parties. And this role of the Committee of the Regions, connecting the local leaders, is one of the most important stabilizing functions. So we digest legislation, try to make it better, and we are trying to strengthen the fabric of Europe.
Thank you very much. And then, in terms of your personal reflections from what you've heard at this year's Cities Forum,
Yes. I heard here, but of course I'm biased, you know, we always hear what we want to hear. So what I heard, that the main concept, what we see today, that all system from thermodynamics, all system go from order to disorder if there isn't enough energy invested. What does it mean for Europe? Because it's true for democracies, for marriages, and for Europe. What is energy? You call a lot for money. That's one part of the energy. But the other part of the energy is the leadership capacity, the ambition, the innovation, the creativity capacity of all communities and leaders, from the smallest towns to the presidents of regions. What we see today, that we need all energy in the system to be working. So I see this, that we need everybody here. We need more money. There's a lot of uncertainty because of the future, so we need stabilizers. What is the most important stabilizing tool of the European Union? It's called cohesion policy. So we need a strengthened cohesion policy. Also, so money, shared management, strong cohesion policy, better regulation, which means not just understanding what we are doing, but also seeing in the process. This is what we try to do, the REC hub in the Committee of the Regions, so see in the process if it is working or not, and simplification. But what does simplification mean? It doesn't mean that you have to simplify reality, because reality is super complex. This is what the cloud shows, that the challenges are absolutely complex. You don't want to simplify the challenge. What you want to simplify is the end user's experience. So you need to develop complex technologies to simplify the connection, the interface to complex EU policies, because you don't want to make it less complex. You want the cities, regions, local leaders, businesses to easily connect and understand.
Thank you very much indeed for your messages. Yeah, thank you for that, Kata. That was great. And I'll perhaps go in the order that I can see the names on the screen. So Anne, coming to you. You're representing the region, Région Hauts-de-France, but you also have a special role because the region is the entrusted entity for the European Urban Initiative. So again, if I could invite you first of all to explain that role to people that aren't familiar with it, and then share your reflections on what you've heard at this year's Cities Forum. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the Région Hauts-de-France, which is a region in the north of France, going from the Belgian border to almost the airport in Paris, with a large coastline also, took really the European dimension to its heart. And so we, of course, we are mainstream authority, but also have a important role in European cooperation, managing several cooperation programs like Interreg Europe or Northwest Europe, and also in really with the Commission working first on the innovative actions and now on the urban initiative, doing it together from the scratch, bringing it here to the Cities Forum.
Okay, anything else you want to share from what you've heard in terms of the messages that you've picked up at the forum?
Yeah, perhaps just to share with you, because there's so much to say about these days, 3 ideas. First, I think this Cities Forum is a really good example of cooperation, because the Commission with a region and the city of Krakow was putting it all together to bring 800 practitioners, mayors together, and there were so many more people online, and to share and have an experience together. So I think it's a really good example of partnership, co-creation that we can see here. Second, perhaps point is, and it was on the expression wall. Someone wrote, we have a need for practical implementation and not just discussion. And I think it's just what we hear about. We need strategies, we need ideas, but we also need the implementation and the operational side. And I think the combination of this makes a difference, and for us as a region, it's key. And I think the discussions, because there were strategical, political discussions, there were panels, but also workshops, bringing these different levels together, I think what's really interesting. And perhaps the last point, we heard it sometimes, I'm not alone. Some people, and it's really interesting, it was their first experience here with the European dimension, others have large experience, of course, came here, and some of them said, but I have my local issues, and now I see here that but the others have the same. And that we can work on them, experience and have the knowledge in, Kata said, at these uncertain times. And I think this is really so excellent examples we could share, knowledge, implementation, the testimonies, they were so inspiring. I think this is what I would personally bring back from this Cities Forum.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing your perspectives. Karen, if I can come to you, Karen van Danzig. I've seen some organizations, I think, calling for a European urban envoy. you are the example of an urban envoy from the national level, from the Netherlands. Again, if I could invite you to explain what that role involves, and then also share your perspectives from the event.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is actually my third time. So I was in Porto, because I started in 2020, this function. And so Porto was the first, and then it was Torino. And after that, now the beautiful Krakow. And I must say, I think I heard that the amount of people coming to these events is like growing. It's like 800 and so many online. And also the actionable energy, I think you said the same. The actionable energy is also growing. I think it's also a unique opportunity to have all these practitioners and city representatives together in one room. You know, you can learn so much from each other and do so many things. But just on the urban envoy, I think it's a unique function. I think I'm the only one. I would love some colleagues in other countries. It actually, I'm doing this since 2020, and it's, my task is actually to strengthen the position and role of cities in the EU. So I think that would be very helpful for a lot of you, and especially also for the Dutch cities. And I think also this unique position tasks me for looking for the common ground between different levels of government. And I think at a time where the time now asks maybe for more people that are tasked with finding this common ground. And I think the interesting thing is the things that complicate people, or think like, how does that work, is that I can represent the national government, like a minister or a DG or at a national level, but I also can represent the cities, especially the Dutch cities. And this makes like multi-level in myself, sort of. And maybe just to reflect a little bit on what I've been hearing, a lot has already been said, but just to reiterate what I've been hearing, it's really loud and clear this time. It's also very similar. I think the message are very similar. One is that cities have similar challenges but need different solutions. So they need place-based solutions. And this is also the reason I think we can learn a lot from each other. They have answers. I mean, there's what, 70% living in cities. But the cities also have the answers for a lot of the challenges that we have together. If it's competitiveness, resilience, it's a strong Europe. I think the cities definitely have it. And the message actually from cities toward the EU is direct, or is addressing funding, is addressing administrative capacity, but is also addressing they're looking more and more to Europe for answers. And I understand. I mean, I'm from the national government, but I understand that a lot of local governments feel, the national governments, there's a bigger gap. There might be a bigger gap between the national and the local governments. And therefore, EU is maybe also the place to go. Another thing that I think is very important, that if we have an impactful agenda or EU agenda for cities, it must address the funding, like I said. It must also affect, and I think that's something that the Netherlands has a lot in its heart, is the whole better regulation. So the effect of European policy and legislation on cities is very important. It must address this. And it's interesting to hear that housing is like one of the biggest priorities around, which I definitely also agree with. So that would be my point. And I think now the ball is in the court of Vito and the Commission to make something of what has been brought to the table here and all the other consultations that have been done. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So certainly part of the ball is in the court of the Vice President Vito on the future agenda, but we all have a role to play. And I'd now like to ask you, from your own perspective and your own level and your own role, what you're taking forward. What do you think this means for your own role? These messages that we're hearing, these discussions. Maybe Kata, I'll come to you first. How are you taking this forward? How are you planning to take this forward?
Yeah, but I always think about the whole process. It's a process, okay? So it's a co-creation process. So if I look at the future budget, because this is what we are looking at, we're expecting to see, but I see it as co-creation. It's not just something put on the table and stays like this. Okay, what I want to see there. We talked about the stabilizing role of cohesion policy. We talked about definitely we need more money. We definitely need everybody on board. We definitely need synchronizing all of our efforts. But there's a very important part. Whatever happens there shouldn't be a competition between the urban and the rural. So everything we do, we have to solve this polycrisis together and not dividing urban and rural. That's very important. So we really need an integrated approach. I really know that there's a call for simplification, but I told you what I think about simplification is the end user's experience and not about pretending that the problem is not complex, which means I think it's really important that in the regional development funds, there are some dedicated money for urban projects. So the so-called earmarking stays and even increases. What I learned, and also I believe from what your experience was, that a lot of things work, and things that work should stay. If I look at, I come from Budapest. We're also one of the cities in the Covenant of Mayors. We put together our sustainable climate and energy action plans like 9,000 other cities did in Europe. This is something that works, that we should build on. If we have already existing thinking frameworks, if we already existing monitoring programs, if we already have existing things that work, we should keep those. Something on the mission, because also we're one of the mission cities, climate neutral city missions, and there are a lot of times discussion, okay, why are we doing this? It is our hero's story. And heroes' story are very important for us humans. This is all of our history. Because what is the climate neutral city mission? It is the reaching of the unreachable star. This is the impossible quest. And we see that there are some leaders who try to reach the unreachable star, and all of the others, we are watching that. And we know that it is possible. We will see that it is possible. We know that the same story cannot happen the same way in our cities. But it's very similar to what we see in the Olympic Games. We see humans doing the impossible. This is the mission. This is our hero story. This is why it's very important to have these missions that we all others watch, because this is what we do. We share our success stories, we share our survival stories, and we learn and grow through these stories, and these give inspiration because we know that we need all this ambition and innovation and creativity capacity. And just one more story, because we are in Krakow. And the myth of Krakow is about confronting the amalgam of chaos. It is the dragon. What is the dragon? It is the amalgam of everything the humans fear, the bird of prey, the lion, and the snake, all in one. The mythology of Krakow is that there was a dragon who was threatening everything, and came the hero who didn't approach the dragon with a sword, but with creativity, with hiding sulfur in a sheep. The dragon eat the sulfur, become very thirsty, and it exploded. This is what we need, because what we see today, it is an amalgam of crises, all in one. And we know that just approaching it with strength is not enough. We need this innovation capacity, and we need to confront it voluntarily, and we need a lot of people who would do that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Please. Sharing such an inspiring message and an inspiring image for us to take away as well. Anne, if I could come back to you again, you've explained the particular role of the Région de France. How are you thinking to take forward the ideas you've heard in this Cities Forum?
This was really inspiring. So, what we as a region think that work should stay. I think this is really important. And we see if the European level and the regional, local level work together, it works and it creates heroes. I think we need, and it's not only that one decides and the other executes. It's to really work together. And I think the initiative shows a unique way of doing things. You know, when we first started, there was nothing. There was the idea of the Commission, and then we started from the scratch with a wonderful team, I must say, from the Secretariat, and then we put it to life, and then see the project, see that we could also go to knowledge, to capacities, to the portico. It was like a long way, and when we take back, it's worth it. It's so important, and we need to have this direct link between the local level where things happen and the European level. I think this is really important, that we work together and in a strong partnership. Perhaps the second point that we bring home, that we really need cohesion policy. We need shared management and further support of our cities and region, and I think this is key, and we have to keep the partnership approach, where each level is listening to what the other says, has its importance and legitimacy. I think this is really important. And perhaps one last point, what's really interesting also about what the cities said, that they are linked to the territory. It's just not the city, it's also the link to the territorial needs. There was this morning the testimony of Krakow about the air quality, I found really interesting, and also work together of cities of different sizes. They are sometimes different, but we all need to work together. And in our region, we have like metropolis, but also small cities, and it's really important to find a solution for everyone. And if we can, in the European unique way to do it, to cooperate and exchange and stand together.
Thank you very much. I'll move straight to Karen. From your perspective, in the Netherlands, what do you take forward, or plan to take forward?
Well, I think for me, as a takeaway for the Netherlands, but also as an envoy or as the national government, for us, I mean, next year will be the 10th year of the urban agenda for the EU, and we will want to celebrate this. And for us, it's also the moment. I mean, I think at the moment, I think 10 years ago, it was just the urban agenda for the EU. It was about making sure that cities are having a seat at the table, that cities are important within the EU, that they're being listened to, that they're being involved. And it is interesting, you know, that there is now, I don't know, I think DG REGIO did a mapping, and there are so many initiatives on cities. It's like almost a luxury problem that we have. But it's good. I mean, it's also good that a lot of DGs, and there's a lot of programs that make sure that what is happening in the sectoral world, that they have the knowledge of what happens when it goes into a city or into a place. And I think this is a very important, movement that started 10 years ago through the urban agenda and is now going, now after 10 years, I think we have the possibility of this next step, the EU agenda for cities. But there I would say this multi-level governance principle that, that has been mentioned quite a lot, means that we actually truly from the very beginning need to involve everybody, stakeholders, cities, but also national government, in the spirit of the urban agenda. And for me, it remains a little bit unclear how do these two, continue, or are they going to continue parallel, or how are they going to strengthen each other, or how they're going to complement each other. And for me, that would be like a task as an urban envoy, but also one of the founders of the urban agenda, to move this forward. So this would be like a personal message to me. I also have a question a little bit about the name. I think the names are very confusing. They look very similar, so maybe we have to do something about this. And I think for me, as a national government, I would have wanted a little bit more maybe also on the role of member states in this whole story. Because I think we need all levels to actually make sure that it works for cities and it works for our citizens. And just One final comment, I think, is on the better regulation. For the Netherlands, this is a very important point. I know that the Committee of Regions also does a lot on this better regulation side. For us, the legislation is very defining for urban areas and the EU legislation. And this should be really taken into account in this new agenda, because that was one of the most difficult things in the urban agenda for the EU. And I think the new agenda for cities should definitely take on this better regulation part. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for all your answers to that question. You can see that the clock is slightly ticking in front of us. Time is against us, but I want to give you all a chance to share a final message with everybody that's in the room and also following online. We've set you the challenge of trying to come up with 1 or 2 words to capture your vision for the future of cities, looking ahead towards 2050. Obviously, you can then explain what you mean by that and why you've chosen that. But can I start with you, Kata? What's your vision for cities and what's your final message to everybody?
Sure. We have similar thinking because when I saw the first word map, 2 things emerged: green, trees, and houses. Okay, what is our historical house, home? It's represented by the tree. So what is my word? It is the mycelium. What is the mycelium? Mycelium is the hidden network of trees. This concept was presented in a book, The Secret Life of Trees. I recommend to read it, because there is a hidden network under the ground which connects all of the trees. And what do they do? Trees communicate to each other, they share resources, give warnings, and if trees are well connected, they live longer, better, and they are more resilient to challenges. So this is my word.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Anne, can I come to you for your final message?
I would say perhaps 2 things. First, perhaps one certainty that there is no one, that we live in a world of uncertainty, and I think it will not change. It should be that digital, AI, or health issues, geopolitical things. So what we need is to face the challenges together and to have resilience in all these aspects, and perhaps also to be proud to be Europeans who stand together and work together. And I think then we will find the solutions. And I hope that in 2050 we are proud of being Europeans and could pass it to the next generations.
Thank you very much indeed. Karen,
Yeah.
tough act to
My
follow.
last-
Yeah, what's your final
last
message?
one. Yeah, actually, I was thinking, 2050 sounds very far away. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll even be a grandmother by that time. I mean, sorry for the... But I'm like, okay. And I'm very visual. So I was also thinking about all the movies that, are out there that are very dystopic. And that's something I do not want. And when I was thinking about a movie that, paints a picture of the future that I would like to see, I'm like, there's not many movies out there, actually. There's more movies about, what you don't want than what you want. So then I thought, okay, so that's not the way forward. So I think it would be very good in 2050, which is about 25 years, that we move beyond this period of discontent and this messy transitional period. I hope it will be more stable, and that actually all of you will also be like the urban envoys to contribute to a very livable, green city, and for the citizens, but also for a stronger Europe. So that's pretty much my vision. Don't know what I will be doing at that moment, but hopefully enjoying this strong and beautiful city and Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And could we have a round of applause, please, for this afternoon's panel, for our closing session? Thank you very much to all 3 of you for joining and sharing your perspectives. Just before you leave, we'll just do some final details. I'll give the final word shortly to the Deputy Director-General of DG REGIO for some final words. But before we do that, I want to remind you of what you said that you were looking forward to when we asked you during the opening session. So you can see there that people were really looking forward to networking, to exchanging, to connecting, to sharing and inspiring each other with good practices, identifying also specific funding opportunities. So there's lots of thoughts around that which feeds in. So let's now ask you at the end of the event, if we can launch the Slido question, what you have most appreciated about the Cities Forum 2025. So there is, again, the QR code if you need it, or you can, again, type Cities Forum into the, after the hashtag when you land on Slido. Make sure you're in S1 Plenary, and share with us what you most appreciated about this year's event. And we'll see if we can take a moment to get some feedback on that. While you're answering that, perhaps there's a few kind of information points. Some people have been asking about whether the event platform will remain open after the event. Just to inform you that it won't. I don't know exactly how long it will remain open, but it will not be open permanently. So we recommend, if you want to continue exchanging and networking, that Portico is the place to be. I mentioned before that by registering and taking part in the Cities Forum, you're automatically registered for Portico. So take part and connect with each other on Portico, the one-stop shop for urban practitioners in Europe. And also the presentations and the recordings of certainly the live-streamed elements will be made available. But you can see here, the opportunities for networking with peers, exchanging good practices, but also people have appreciated the opportunity to input into the future agenda for cities. We know there was the official consultation which closed some weeks ago, but this has been another opportunity to share our perspectives and feed into that. So people have appreciated that. And then if we go to the next question, and apologies if people are still answering, but what are your main takeaways from similar challenges everywhere? Again, there's connections, but there's connections have suddenly leaped out at me. There you go, meaningful connections. Also, some of the topics, housing, I mentioned earlier, seems to be one of the buzzwords of the Cities Forum this time. And to dare, to innovate, that was one of the messages of an earlier session, that we need to innovate, but innovation is risky, and we need to take risks sometimes. And then we're asking you the same question that we asked our panelists in terms of your vision for cities. So what word characterizes your vision for cities? A lot about sustainability and green. We want attractive, healthy, safe cities to live in. More a utopia than a dystopia that maybe we see in too many films. So a positive image, hopefully, to imagine in 2050 that that's what sustainable urban development will deliver for us in 2050. Lots of other topics emerging, but we need to press on. Before I hand the floor to the Deputy Director-General to give us some closing remarks, I think we have an opportunity to go back to the online studio. We met Gerdy again in the opening ceremony. There's been a whole online program. Gerdy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello, Ed.
How have things been going? Yeah.
Yes, fine. But I'm really looking forward to get some sun. I've been here in the basement of the Krakow Congress Center for 3 days. We have been recording sessions with over 40
speakers. We'll unlock
speakers.
the door soon, yeah.
Yeah, and the good news is that it's all recorded and it will all be available on the EUI website very soon. So have a look there. I'm going back to Amsterdam and I wish you all safe travels back home to all the cities in Europe where you live.
Thank you very much, Gerdy. A round of applause for the online studio. And we hope you get some sun soon. It is very nice outside, Gerdy, I think. Okay, without further ado, I promised that we would give the closing remarks to the Deputy Director-General of DG REGIO, Hugo Sobral. So, Mr. Sobral, please, the floor is yours to offer us your closing words. A round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ed. It was a great pleasure, a great privilege. We've started this forum with the belief that cities is where Europe's future is being built. I think we are now closing with the conviction that this is indeed the case. We've heard many stories, many ideas, inspiring ideas. I think we've created a stronger partnership, a renewed sense of purpose. And as the saying goes, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And the feeling is that, indeed, this is what cities are doing. We've heard stories about green roofs, smart roads. We've heard stories about circular economy solutions, citizen-led budgets. So we see that for every challenge, there is indeed an idea that can be transferable, that can be scalable, that can be used by others. And this is, I think, the spirit of the forum. I want to underline that the European Commission believes in cities, but not just believes. The European Commission is investing in cities, is learning from cities, and above all, is standing with cities. But as several speakers have said, I mean, this is not just about the European Commission. I mean, this city's agenda, you know, to truly deliver results needs to be embraced by everyone. And again, the idea that the multi-level governance, I mean, this is not just something, you know, about procedures. This is about actually impact. If we want to actually get real impact on the ground, we need the different levels to cooperate between each other. So it's not just about the Commission, the cities, the member states, it's the three of them working in the same direction. And at the same time, I think it's also important to underline the role of cities, as many have mentioned, as engines of growth, as catalysts, as magnets of talent, but also the responsibility of cities actually to be radiators of this growth and of this talent to their surrounding areas, to their rural areas. And this is also very important, and it's a message that we should take away. Now, as we've seen, there's a lot of room for improvement as well, and we are here also to hear your suggestions. I would probably sum them up, you know, with 4 S's. The first S is simplifying regulation. The second S is about streamlining funding. The third S is about structured dialogue. And the fourth S is about strengthening capacities. And I think this sums up our homework, the homework that we are going to do back in the European Commission in developing the cities agenda. This forum is coming to a close, but our engagement will continue. Next week, we will have the Executive Vice President meeting already several mayors to carry forward these discussions. So I hope that you will take back with you this energy, this inspiration, these ideas. I hope that you will keep pushing for cohesion policy. Cohesion is not just a policy, actually, it's a promise that no region, no city, no citizen is left behind. That's why it's so important. And as some speakers have mentioned, we are now at this critical juncture of negotiating the next multi-annual financial framework. And I would like to call on you that you actually carry this message at different levels to your member states, to your governments, to your capitals. Make your voice heard also in Brussels, across different levels of the administrations in Brussels. I think this is very important. Keep pushing for place-based policies, keep pushing for urban development and for the role of cities in Europe's future. Now, to close, I want to thank to everyone who made this forum possible. I'll have to read, otherwise I'll forget someone. So, first of all, of course, all of you, the ones who came to Krakow, the ones who have been participating online, thanks very much for your suggestions, for your energy, for your ideas. That was well appreciated. I think I want to thank the speakers as well for your knowledge, for sharing your experience, for the practical ideas that I'm sure have enriched this forum. Of course, I should thank also our hosts, the city of Krakow. I think the city of Krakow is indeed a good combination of history, of cultural heritage, but also with modernity, with knowledge economy. I think we were all well received, and in particular yesterday's session and yesterday's networking event, cocktail with warm weather, was welcomed by all of us. I would also like, of course, to thank our skillful moderators, Ed, Annelies, Eileen, Gerdy in the basement, you're not forgotten. So thank you very much for skillfully guiding us, throughout these 3 days. And finally, a word of thanks also to our co-organizers, so the European Urban Initiative. Anne, thanks very much, and your team, so Amélie, Josephine, Eleni, and everyone in the Secretariat of the Entrusted Entity of the Hauts-de-France. I mean, this is a successful partnership and one that we appreciate a lot. Of course, a special word of thanks also to the REGIO team, who is here and who has worked on this forum, some of them for more than a year. So Laura, Ludovica, Clementine, Pia, Kadri, so all of you and also the colleagues back in Brussels, thank you very much. Special thanks to our partners, because this is about also partnership principle and translating the partnership principle into practice. We have the Committee of Regions, we have the Economic and Social Committee, Eurocities, CMR, the European Investment Bank, IURC, URBACT, Interreg, Urban Contact Points, and of course all other Commission services that have been involved in this forum. So it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. The work will continue, but the work will continue together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Director-General Sobral, for those closing words and the thanks. I just want to reiterate my personal thanks as well to the people that you've mentioned, in particular my co-moderators who helped to plan and deliver many of the plenary sessions, the panelists who joined on stage for each of the plenary sessions and shared so wonderfully and actively their views. I know you don't want me to hear me go on thanking people, so I'll let you know now that there is, after this, the networking lunch. If you need to go to get a flight immediately, be aware that you can pick up a takeaway lunch. They've been prepared so that you can grab and go if you need to. So do take a moment to go upstairs. Stay if you can. We'll carry on the conversations up on the first floor, but if you need to go quickly, you can take something away with you. There's nothing more to say, I don't think, other than we carry on the conversations, hopefully. So check the EUI website for the latest opportunities and to carry on finding out about events that might be coming up. Go on to Portico, join the exchanges there, network there. Maybe we'll see some of you at the EU Week of Cities and Regions in Brussels in October. And if not, hopefully we'll meet again at the next Cities Forum. Thank you very much and safe travels home to everybody.